Welcome to the deep dive. For you listening today, our mission is discovering the true unvarnished reality of maintaining synthetic grass in extreme desert climates.
Right, which is quite the challenge.
Oh, it really is. We are pulling our insights straight from the comprehensive maintenance guides of Henderson Artificial Turf. And they're a company operating right in the intensely harsh Mojave Desert climate of southern Nevada.
Yeah, that is not a forgiving environment for, well, anything really.
No, definitely not. I mean, imagine spending like $15,000 to install this indestructible military-grade synthetic lawn, only to realize that the energy-efficient windows on your own house are acting like magnifying
Oh
glasses.
yeah, the thermal reflection.
Right, and they're literally melting your yard into a plastic puddle. It's crazy. So, okay, let's unpack this. A lot of people install artificial turf thinking they will, never have to lift a finger again.
It's totally sold to us as that ultimate set it and forget it landscape.
Exactly. But what these guides reveal is that skipping a few very specific upkeep steps can just ruin a 15 to 20-year landscaping investment.
Completely ruin it, yeah.
So today we are breaking down the exact weekly and monthly routines to keep a synthetic lawn perfect. We're going to list essential weekly tasks and really explain monthly care steps. But before we get to the manual labor, we have to understand what this material is fighting against.
Well, the environmental baseline is really the most critical factor here. We're looking at the Mojave microclimate.
Which means heat. Lots of it.
Yeah, that means over 300 days a year of intense baking ultraviolet radiation. And you combine that with high-velocity desert winds carrying highly abrasive particulate matter.
Right.
It is just a relentless assault on the structural integrity of any polymer.
Which honestly makes me think of like leaving a plastic bucket on a sunny beach all year round. You leave it in the sand and the sun, and within a few months, the color's totally bleached out, right?
Absolutely.
The plastic gets brittle, and it just cracks the second you step on it. So looking at these Nevada conditions, I have to wonder if the whole concept of a maintenance-free turf is just a clever marketing myth.
It's a fair question to ask.
Like, how does an entire yard made of synthetic fibers not just, disintegrate under 300 days of UV rays?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the manufacturers actually anticipate that exact degradation. High-quality turf isn't just, dyed plastic.
Okay.
During the extrusion process, when the liquid polymer is actually being formed into the individual blades, manufacturers integrate these highly specialized UV stabilizers.
Oh, interesting. So it's built in.
Exactly. These additives absorb or scatter the ultraviolet light, which prevents the radiation from breaking the polymer chains at a molecular level.
So it doesn't get brittle like that cheap beach toy.
Right. However, surviving the sun is really only half the battle. The wind is the hidden enemy here.
Because it's blowing hot air around.
No, actually. Because of what the air is carrying. The Mojave wind transports microscopic desert dust, pollen, and organic matter.
Just constantly blowing that stuff around.
Right. And as that airborne debris settles onto the turf, it doesn't just sit on top of the green blades. It works its way down through the infill layer and settles directly onto the porous backing material.
Which is where the drainage holes are located, right?
Exactly.
See, my instinct would be to just let it sit there. I mean, it's dirt. Eventually, the wind will just blow it away again, right?
You'd think so, but that is a really common assumption that's completely wrong in a desert environment.
Really?
Yeah, that microscopic debris doesn't blow away. When you add the occasional morning dew or, the infrequent but super heavy desert rainfall, that dust and organic matter emulsifies.
Emulsifies, like it mixes together.
Yeah, it turns into this highly compact, cement-like sludge that permanently clogs the drainage pore.
Oh, wow. So it just seals up the bottom of the yard?
Pretty much. So when Henderson gets a torrential downpour, the water can't percolate through the backing into the soil beneath. Your yard turns into a stagnant swamp.
Yikes.
The base layer erodes, and the entire installation loses its structural stability.
So dust actually destroys your drainage. That is completely counterintuitive.
It really is.
But, maybe not as wild as the window situation I mentioned earlier. The sources bring up this incredible phenomenon where your home's energy-efficient windows can just destroy the turf.
Ah, yes, the thermal reflection issue. It's a brilliant example of unintended consequences in modern home design.
I mean, who would have thought?
Right. Many newer homes use low-E or low emissivity glass. These windows are engineered with microscopically thin metallic coatings that reflect solar heat outward, which, keeps your interior air conditioning costs down.
But because of barometric pressure differences between the inside and outside of the double pane glass, the window can actually slightly bow inward, right?
You've hit the exact mechanism there. The window essentially becomes concave.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, it acts exactly like a...
Like a parabolic mirror or a magnifying glass.
Exactly. As the sun moves across the sky, that bowed window concentrates the reflected solar energy into this hyper-focused, incredibly hot beam that just slowly tracks across the yard.
That is terrifying for a plastic lawn.
Very. The ambient temperature might only be 90 degrees, but that concentrated beam can easily exceed 200 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it surpasses the melting point of the polyethylene turf fibers, physically fusing them together into this hard, melted scar.
Meaning you literally have to install specialized non-reflective films over your exterior windows just to protect your plastic grass from the sun.
Pretty much, yeah.
It really forces you to realize how interconnected a residential property actually is.
Absolutely.
So, okay, knowing that the environment is actively trying to melt the yard and, clog the drainage system with dust cement, it makes sense that you can't just install it and walk away.
No, definitely not.
That leads us directly into the required defense strategy. For you listening, we need to list essential weekly tasks. Because if that fine desert dust turns into concrete sludge, our priority has to be stopping the debris from settling in the first place, right?
That's spot on. The primary weekly task is all about surface management. You are basically trying to intercept the organic matter before it bypasses the blades.
So we are talking about debris removal. Every single week, you have to get out there and clear the surface. You've got to remove the leaves, the stray twigs, and the loose gravel that constantly blows into the yard.
Right, but there's a catch.
Yes, there is. The sources issue this massive, glaring warning about how you do this. You must never, ever use a standard metal yard rake.
Never.
If you are listening and you have artificial grass, throw your metal rake away. You can only use a specialized plastic landscape rake or just a standard leaf blower.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the prohibition on metal rakes makes perfect mechanical sense.
How so?
To understand it, you have to look at how synthetic turf is manufactured. The individual plastic blades are tufted, essentially sewn into a primary backing material.
Okay, like a carpet.
Exactly like a carpet. And then that's coated with a heavy layer of polyurethane to really lock the fibers in place. It's an incredibly strong grid, but it is still a woven material.
And a rigid metal rake has those stiff, curved tines. I imagine they act like dozens of little grappling hooks just dragging across that woven grid.
That's precisely the danger. The metal tines will penetrate past the infill, snag that woven backing, and slice right through the polyurethane coating.
Oh, man. So you're basically shredding your own lawn.
Yeah. Once you compromise that structural grid, the individual blades will literally start falling out. You are manually destroying the drainage capabilities and the visual density of the lawn.
That's brutal.
So a plastic rake, which naturally flexes and bends, is really the only safe manual tool.
It's basically a self-inflicted wound on a multi-$1,000 investment just because you used the wrong tool on a Sunday afternoon.
Yep. Happens more often than you'd think.
So, plastic rake or leaf blower only. You intercept the big stuff on top before it can decay and clog the bottom. But, even if your weekly debris removal is flawless, gravity doesn't take a day off.
Gravity is relentless.
Over the course of a few weeks, the synthetic grass is facing a completely different physical toll, which is heavy foot traffic.
Right, the compressive load. A family walking across the same path, kids playing, dogs running around.
Which brings us to the deeper phase of the maintenance guide, where we need to clearly explain monthly care steps. And here's where it gets really interesting to me, because the first monthly task is something called cross-brushing.
Yes, cross-brushing.
My initial thought is, why do I need to brush my grass? With a natural lawn, heavy traffic just kills the grass down to the dirt. With synthetic turf, the plastic obviously doesn't die, so what is actually happening underfoot?
Well, it's an issue of polymer memory. The synthetic blades are manufactured to stand upright, but they are still, at the end of the day, pliable plastics.
Okay, so they bend.
Right. Under constant heavy weight, like a 50-pound dog running the exact same route every single day, the blades are forced to lay flat. And over time, the plastic develops what we call a mechanical set.
A mechanical set.
It remembers that flattened position. If you just leave it, high-traffic zones, like areas around your patio or the pool deck, will just turn into a permanently matted, flattened carpet.
So the monthly intervention is taking a stiff bristled push broom, and again, using synthetic bristles here, absolutely no metal, and aggressively brushing the turf against the natural grain of the blades.
Yes. You are physically breaking that mechanical set and forcing the plastic fibers to stand back upright.
That makes sense.
And you are also doing something crucial to the infill when you do that.
Oh, right, the sand stuff.
Exactly. The infill is that layer of sand or rubber granules sitting at the base of the blades. It gives the yard its bounce and supports the fibers. Heavy foot traffic displaces that infill, pushing it out of the high wear zones.
So when you cross brush, you are redistributing that infill back into an even layer.
You got it. Completely rejuvenating the structural cushion of the lawn.
Okay, so the brushing fixes the mechanical compression. But the second part of the monthly routine focuses on what the broom kicks up. The second step is surface rinsing.
Crucial step.
The maintenance guides recommend taking a standard garden hose and giving the entire yard a light rinse once a month. This washes away that ultra-fine microscopic desert dust we talked about earlier.
The stuff the leaf blower just totally misses.
Right, flushing it safely through the drainage pores before it has a chance to form that concrete sludge.
And we really need to pause and examine this rinsing aspect for listeners who own dogs.
Oh, yeah, the pet issue.
Many homeowners transition to synthetic turf, specifically because traditional grass gets absolutely destroyed by the nitrogen in pet urine,
Yeah.
Creating those dead yellow spots everywhere.
Turf completely solves the yellow spot problem, but it introduces a massive odor problem if you treat it like natural soil. Because artificial grass doesn't have a natural microbiome, does it?
It doesn't at all. In a natural yard, soil microbes naturally consume and break down the uric acid in pet waste. Synthetic turf, however, is a sterile environment.
Right.
So when a dog urinates on the turf, the liquid drains through to the base. The intense Nevada heat quickly evaporates the water content, but it leaves behind these highly concentrated uric acid crystals trapped in the infill and the backing.
And when those crystals bake in 110-degree heat, I can't even imagine. The odor must be staggering.
It is awful.
So a quick spray with a garden hose isn't going to fix that. Water won't dissolve baked-on uric acid, right?
No, water won't touch it, which is why the monthly routine for pet owners requires a biological intervention.
Biological intervention.
Yeah. You have to attach a specialized pet-safe enzyme cleaner to your hose and basically spray down the entire area.
Okay, so what does that actually do?
You are manually introducing active bacterial enzymes onto the turf. These enzymes literally digest and break down the uric acid crystals at a molecular level. They consume the source of the odor rather than just, masking it with a perfume.
The way I conceptualize this whole monthly routine, the cross-brushing and the enzymatic rinsing, is less like doing yard work and more like maintaining a high-end mechanical filtration system, like a pool filter or a complex HVAC unit.
That's a really interesting way to look at it.
Because with a filter, you can swap out the easy surface screen every week, which is our debris removal. But once a month, you have to backwash the system.
Right.
You have to get in there, manually realign the internal components with the broom, and flush out the microscopic contaminants with a specialized solvent. If you don't backwash the filter, the whole system chokes. If you don't brush and rinse the turf, it gets matted, clogged, and useless.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. You are basically the manual operator of an artificial ecosystem. You have to step in and replicate the restorative processes that wind, rain, and soil biology usually handle out in nature.
But even if you are the perfect operator, biology is incredibly stubborn. The sources point out that nature will inevitably throw a curveball into your plastic yard.
Yes. And this raises an important question, one that routinely frustrates new turf owners. How is it even possible for weeds to grow in a yard made entirely of heavily coated polyurethane and plastic fibers?
Because you would assume a thick, rubberized mat would be the ultimate impenetrable weed barrier.
And it is, from the bottom up. The backing material stops essentially all weeds from sprouting from the native soil beneath the lawn. The invasion actually comes from the sky.
From the sky. Wait, the wind.
Exactly. We mentioned the desert wind carrying dust and organic matter. Well, it also carries thousands of tiny weed seeds.
So they land on top of the artificial grass. But how do they sprout without any soil?
Because over time, the dust, the broken down leaves, and the airborne pollen mix with the sand infill. This creates a very thin, highly nutrient-rich layer of microsoil resting right on top of the plastic backing, nestled right between the green blades. So when you do your monthly rinse, you provide the moisture. The wind-blown seeds germinate perfectly in that microsoil, and their roots simply weave horizontally through the synthetic blades and the infill layer, They're growing entirely on top of the system.
That is highly resilient on the part of the weeds, but incredibly annoying for the
They're
homeowner.
very annoying.
So you have to pull them out. But the guides have a major warning if you decide to use chemical herbicides to deal with this. You absolutely must ensure you are using a gentle, water-based weed killer. My guess is that heavy-duty weed killers are just too toxic for pets to walk on.
Well, while pet safety is always a concern, the warning here is actually about structural chemistry.
Really?
Chemistry.
Yeah.
Many commercial heavy-duty weed killers are formulated with oil-based solvents. Synthetic turf fibers and the polyurethane backing are petroleum-based products.
Oh, I see.
If you spray an oil-based chemical onto the turf, the solvents will literally react with the polymers. It will dissolve the chemical bonds of the backing material, melting a permanent, irreversible dead spot into your lawn just because you tried to kill a single dandelion.
Note to self, do not melt the lawn. So water-based herbicides only.
Exactly.
Now, weeds are a natural edge case, but the maintenance guides also detail a recreational edge case that completely alters the upkeep strategy, and that's backyard putting greens.
Yes.
This is a huge upgrade in southern Nevada, but maintaining a putting green is a totally different beast than the residential turf we've been discussing, right?
It requires a fundamental shift in expectations. Standard residential turf is designed for comfort and aesthetics. It's long, soft, and bouncy. A synthetic putting green is designed strictly for kinetic precision.
Kinetic precision.
Yeah. The speed, the roll, and the trajectory of a golf ball depend on a surface that mimics a professional golf course. You are aiming for a specific rating on a stimp meter.
So you obviously can't have long, fluffy blades that bend underfoot.
No, the blades are extremely short, very dense, and the infill material is entirely different. Standard turf often uses crumb rubber or coarse sand for bounce. Putting greens require a highly specialized, ultra-fine silica sand.
Why silica sand specifically? What does that do mechanically that normal sand doesn't?
Standard sand grains are often round and smooth. Silica sand grains are highly angular.
Like little rocks with sharp edges.
Right. When you pack them together, those microscopic angles interlock, creating a dense, incredibly rigid surface that prevents the golf ball from sinking or bouncing offline.
Which means the weekly debris removal has to be obsessive, because even a single tiny twig or clump of dust will throw a putt off its line.
Exactly.
But the most amazing maintenance step to me is how you keep that silica sand interlocked. The sources say that occasionally, to maintain tournament-level playability, you have to use a heavy, water-filled roller over the entire green.
Yes, hydrostatic rolling. Even angular silica sand can loosen up over time due to winds or, heavy rain. By rolling a heavy, water-filled drum over the surface, you are applying massive, even hydrostatic pressure.
You're literally steamrolling your yard.
Basically, it physically forces those angular grains of sand to shift, settle, and lock tightly against each other, and the short synthetic blades perfectly leveling the playing surface. It really highlights that the specific use case of the turf completely dictates the intensity and the physics of the maintenance.
So after going through all of this, the weekly raking to save the backing, the monthly cross-brushing to fight polymer memory, the enzymatic uric acid breakdown, the delicate weed control, and literally steamrolling silica sand.
That's a lot.
It sounds like a significant amount of actual physical labor. It forces the obvious question. So what does this all mean for the homeowner? Are you actually saving any time or money compared to just planting real grass?
That is the ultimate question regarding the return on investment. And when you look at the comparative data, the savings are staggering, even factoring in the required brushing and rinsing.
Let's run the numbers. With traditional grass in a Nevada summer, you are running your irrigation system 3 to 4 times a week just to keep it from dying.
Easily.
With synthetic, you are doing 1 light monthly rinse with a hose. The water utility savings alone practically pay for the maintenance.
And you have to factor in the total elimination of traditional landscaping labor and equipment. Natural grass requires weekly mowing and edging. That means buying and maintaining a lawnmower, purchasing fuel, or paying a landscaping crew week after week.
Right.
It requires expensive seasonal chemical fertilizers and heavy mechanical aeration in the fall to alleviate soil compaction.
With synthetic turf, the mowing, the edging, the aeration, the fertilizing, all of it drops to absolute zero. The maintenance guides state that overall manual labor for yard upkeep is reduced by 75%.
75% is a massive return on time.
It really is. You are trading hours of weekly, gas-powered labor for a quick weekly pass with a plastic rake and a monthly push broom.
The initial capital investment for the installation is undeniably high, for sure. But by completely severing your reliance on heavy irrigation, fuel, and chemical treatments, the financial and temporal payoff is rapid and sustained over the 15-year lifespan.
But just like any major structural system in a home, there is a limit to what a homeowner can do. You can brush and rinse all you want, but eventually the elements will wear down the system to a point where the DIY approach fails.
That's true.
What are the specific red flags that indicate you need to call in a professional maintenance crew?
The sources outline a few critical structural indicators. The most common one relates directly to the cross-brushing we discussed earlier. If you're out there with your stiff-bristled broom, brushing aggressively against the grain, and the grass blades simply refuse to stand up if they just immediately flop back down, that is a critical red flag.
My instinct would just be to push harder, maybe buy a heavier broom, but that won't work.
Pushing harder won't solve it, because the issue isn't the plastic blade itself. The issue is the foundation. It means your infill layer is severely depleted.
Ah, the sand blew away.
Exactly. Over years of high desert winds and torrential rain, that sand or rubber infill gets blown away or washed down into the base. Without that physical material surrounding the base of the blades, they have nothing to lean against. They lack structural support and just collapse under their own weight.
So what do the pros do?
That requires professionals to come in with specialized hoppers to perform an infill top-off, essentially rebuilding the foundation.
Okay, so flat blades mean a depleted foundation. What else should we look out for?
Lifting edges. The perimeter of the turf is usually secured to concrete borders or landscaping walls with commercial adhesives or heavy-duty securing pins. If you notice the edge of the turf starting to pull up or curl away from the border, you need professional intervention immediately.
Because if that Mojave wind gets underneath the backing...
Exactly. It acts like a parachute. High-velocity winds getting under a compromised edge can literally rip entire sections of the installation right off the ground.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it requires immediate professional re-seaming and securing.
Makes sense. There was one final red flag mentioned that sounded more like a physics experiment than a landscaping problem, and that was static electricity.
The triboelectric effect.
The what?
Triboelectric effect.
Yeah.
In intensely dry climates like the Nevada winter, the friction of simply walking or dragging your feet across millions of plastic blades strips electrons from the materials, building up a severe static charge across the entire yard.
So you're just getting zapped by your own grass.
Basically. If kids or pets are constantly receiving painful shocks when they play, a professional crew has to come out and apply specialized anti-static topical treatments. That alters the conductivity of the surface, allowing the charge to safely ground itself.
Getting shocked by your own lawn is definitely a clear sign that you are dealing with a dynamic, engineered system, not just some outdoor rug. So, to bring this all together for you listening, the core takeaway from these Henderson Turf Guides is incredibly practical. If you want a pristine, drought-proof yard that retains its bounce and color for over 15 years, you must abandon the zero-maintenance fantasy.
It just doesn't exist.
But the reality is highly manageable. Committing to a simple plastic landscape rake once a week stops the drainage pores from turning into concrete. Committing to a push broom and a quick rinse once a month fights polymer memory and clears out microscopic dust. Stick to that routine, and you will save thousands of gallons of water, drop your manual labor by 75%, and actually reclaim your weekends.
It is an outstanding trade-off when managed correctly. And as we conclude this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. Consider the fascinating irony of modern home design when we build in extreme climates.
The irony.
Yeah. In our quest to engineer the ultimate, highly efficient, heavily protected desert oasis, we seal our homes behind advanced, low-emissivity windows to fight off the relentless sun. Yet, in doing so, those very energy-efficient windows become the biggest existential threat to our resilient synthetic lawns by acting as focused magnifying glasses.
That is wild to think about.
It forces us to look much more closely at our properties and realize that we aren't just placing isolated products next to each other in a vacuum. Every single element of your property's ecosystem, from the high-tech glass on your walls to the engineered plastic on your ground, is deeply, fundamentally interconnected.
You try to build a machine to defeat the harshness of nature, and you end up having to protect the machine from itself. The idea that you can just roll out a carpet and permanently solve the realities of the desert environment simply doesn't exist. The reality takes a bit of weekly work, but if you understand the mechanics beneath your feet and put in that effort, the results are pretty spectacular.